Life stories, raw emotions, unexpected truths. Subscribe now to join us, and let's begin today's story. He carved the turkey. She carved his heart. On Christmas night, surrounded by the smell of apple pie and hopes of a peaceful holiday, Ethan thought maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. He was wrong. Because right in the middle of dinner, his mother looked up and said 6 words that would burn into his memory forever. You need to move out. No warning. No explanation. Just a knife to the soul served between wine and mashed potatoes. What followed was a journey of betrayal, silence, truth, and a door that would finally close. Not in anger, but in freedom. So stay with us, because what happens next? You won't see it coming. Let's begin. Christmas is supposed to feel like coming home. That's what Ethan kept telling himself as he carefully basted the golden brown turkey in the oven. Outside, snowflakes fell like powdered sugar over the rooftops of Riverside, a quiet town just far enough from the city to feel like its own little snow globe. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon, roasted herbs, and a hope Ethan had nearly forgotten he still had. He had been cooking all day, not just for the food, but for a moment. A chance to feel like a son again, a family again. He even baked the apple pie Linda, his mother always claimed was just like the one my mother used to make. Everything was perfect, at least on the surface. He poured the wine, lit the candles, even dimmed the kitchen lights to a cozy amber glow. The table looked like a holiday movie scene. His cousin Caleb, his younger sister Sophie, and Linda all sat down as the turkey was served, and for a flicker of a second, Ethan felt peace. Then came the cut, not the one through the turkey, the one that gutted him. Linda, with a casualness that bordered on cruelty, lifted her fork, took a bite, swallowed, and said, "You need to move out." The sentence hung in the air like frostbite, silent, sudden, sharp. Ethan blinked. Surely he misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me," she replied, not even looking at him. "I need my space back." No emotion, no build-up, just a bomb dropped between mashed potatoes and stuffing. Sophie froze, fork midair. Caleb looked down like the table might offer answers. But Ethan stayed still, calm. He didn't scream, didn't plead. He simply said quietly, "I pay the rent, Mom. I pay the bills. I buy the groceries. You haven't worked in years." Linda shrugged and sipped her wine like she hadn't just set fire to the holiday. "Still," she muttered, "this house is starting to feel crowded." Crowded. The house that Ethan single-handedly saved from foreclosure. The one he stepped into when Linda lost her job and was drowning in debt. He moved in not because he had to, but because she needed him. And this was how she thanked him? He didn't say another word, just excused himself, stood up from the table, and walked upstairs. Alone. He didn't cry. Not yet. He just sat on the edge of the bed he had paid for, in the room he had renovated, inside the house he kept warm every winter, and stared at the wall until sunrise. No knock, no apology, no hesitation from her. And so, that morning, while Linda still slept off the wine, Ethan packed a suitcase, his laptop, a worn-out hoodie, the last of his dignity. Then he walked out of the house where he had once felt like a son. No note, no good closure. 2 nights later, he lay on Mason's couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above him. Mason didn't ask questions, just handed him a blanket and said, "You're always welcome here, man." And yet, Ethan felt like a ghost walking through the wreckage of a life he'd tried to hold together. The worst part? He hadn't even gotten angry. Not once. Not during dinner, not when she twisted the knife, not when she treated him like a squatter in the home he financed. But then came the text, from Sophie. It was just 5 words. "You won't believe what Mom's saying." Ethan sat up. He called her instantly. "What do you mean?" Sophie's voice trembled. "She's telling everyone you screamed at her, that you cursed, threw your napkin at the table, and stormed out, that you abandoned her on Christmas." He stared at the phone like it might explode. "She's what?" "She's playing the victim," Sophie whispered. "Aunt Lisa just called her crying. She offered to send Mom meals. Said she couldn't believe how cruel you were." His hands began to shake. It wasn't enough that Linda had kicked him out. Now she was rewriting the ending, turning him into the villain in his own story. He had stayed silent to keep the peace, to protect her. But Linda, she was spinning lies like silk, wrapping herself in sympathy and painting Ethan as the monster who walked out on his poor, helpless mother on the holiest night of the year. And people were believing her. His phone pinged. One message, then another. His uncle unfollowed him on Instagram. Group chat removed. Caleb has left. Ethan stared at the screen, pulse pounding. So this is what betrayal tastes like. Not rage, not revenge, just heartbreak. But he wasn't going to scream. He wasn't going to beg. He was going to tell the truth. And the world would have to decide what to do with it. Your turn. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do, just to protect someone else's image? If you were Ethan, would you have stayed silent or exposed the truth right away? Don't miss part 2, where Ethan fights back in the most unexpected way, and the fallout might just change everything he thought he knew about family. Ethan stared at his phone, his heart pacing faster than his thoughts. The lies Linda told weren't just cruel, they were calculated. They were designed to isolate him, to turn family into strangers and strangers into sympathizers. He could feel it happening in real time, his name being erased, replaced with a version of him that never existed. He wanted to scream, but he didn't. Instead, he wrote, not in rage, not for revenge, just the truth. He sat at Mason's kitchen counter, cracked open his laptop, and began typing. For the past 3 years, I've paid every bill in my mother's house. Rent, utilities, groceries, even her Netflix subscription. I moved in when she lost her job to keep her from losing the house. This Christmas, after cooking the entire meal myself and hoping, stupidly, for one night of peace, she looked at me mid-bite and said, "You need to move out." I left quietly, no yelling, no drama, no anger, just gone. But today I found out she's telling people I screamed at her, that I stormed out, that I abandoned her. I didn't want to say anything. I still don't. But sometimes silence only helps the lie grow. So here's my silence. Broken. He hit post, then closed the laptop, walked into Mason's living room, and dropped onto the couch like he just emptied a part of his soul. And he waited. At first, nothing. Then, everything. The first ping came 10 minutes later. Then 5 more in the next 10 minutes. Then his phone lit up like a pinball machine. DMs, comments, missed calls, some were short. Ethan, is this real? Others were long. I'm so sorry. I believed her. I didn't know. I feel terrible. But one hit him like a freight train. It was from Aunt Lisa. I read your post 3 times before I could even breathe again. I believed her, and I shouldn't have. I'm so sorry. You've always been the one holding everything together, and we all let you carry it alone. If you ever need anything, my door's open. Ethan sat in silence, and for the first time in weeks, his hands weren't shaking. He hadn't expected to be believed. He hadn't even expected to be heard. But he was. Then came the message from Caleb. Bro, we always knew something wasn't right with the way she treated you. We just didn't know how bad it really was. I'm sorry for not asking sooner. The validation stung more than the betrayal. Because deep down, Ethan had started to wonder if maybe he was the problem. Maybe he had overreacted. Maybe Linda was right. But no, he was just the only one brave enough to leave. 3 days passed. Quiet. Still. Then came the next storm. Linda had seen the post. He hadn't tagged her, hadn't even named her, but someone had sent it to her. The first message came in at 7:03 a.m. I can't believe you would humiliate me like that. Then another. You twisted everything. I never told you to leave. You chose to. You always play the victim. And then the classic fallback. After everything I've done for you. Ethan stared at the screen, mouth curling into a bitter smile. He didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She could scream into the void if she wanted to. But he wasn't in the void anymore. He had found a way out. A week later, Sophie called. Her voice was different. Tired, hollow. Can we meet? She asked. They met at a small cafe downtown, the Willow Cafe. the kind of place with fairy lights in the windows and mismatched mugs. Sophie stirred her drink for 5 minutes before saying anything. Then finally, things at home are worse than ever. Without Ethan covering the rent, the house was falling apart. Power had been cut off once. Linda had borrowed money from Grandma Helen, who refused the second time. She's blaming you, Sophie said. Tells anyone who'll listen that you abandoned her and left us in the mess. Ethan looked down, feeling guilt rise, until Sophie said the one thing that changed everything. You did the right thing by leaving, Ethan. You should have done it sooner. That hit him harder than all the lies combined. Because Sophie had been there, she had lived it, and she still loved Linda, but she finally saw the truth. I want to leave too, she whispered. I just don't know how. Ethan reached across the table, covered her hand with his. You will, he said, and when you're ready, I've got your back. If someone you love kept twisting your truth, would you fight back or would you walk away for good? In part 3, Ethan gets a knock on the door that no one, not even he, was ready for. What will he do when the past comes calling, pie in hand, and an apology that's not really an apology? Don't miss what happens next. 2 weeks passed. Ethan's apartment was slowly becoming his sanctuary, one piece of secondhand furniture at a time. A tiny table by the window, a chipped mug that felt like it belonged to him and no one else. Peace, for the first time, didn't feel like a luxury. It felt like freedom. No footsteps in the hallway that made his stomach drop, no passive-aggressive sighs from the other room, no guilt, no games, just silence. And that silence, it wasn't lonely, it was healing. He saw Sophie every other day, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just for the quiet comfort of being around someone who understood, who saw the same cracks in their childhood, and was finally learning to stop pretending they weren't there. Then came the knock. It was a Tuesday, mid-afternoon. Ethan had just finished hanging a small framed quote by the door. You don't owe your peace to anyone who steals it. 3 soft knocks, not hurried, not forceful. He opened the door halfway. Linda, her smile was thin, strained. In her hands was a pie, store-bought, pumpkin, as if sugar could stitch what she had torn. I thought we could talk, she said. Ethan didn't move, just stood in the doorway, blocking her view inside. Are you here to apologize? He asked evenly. She blinked, hesitated. I think we both made mistakes. There it was, the non-apology, the dance of deflection she'd mastered so well. No ownership, no regret, just a performance meant to look like reconciliation. Ethan nodded slowly, then stepped out into the hallway, closing the apartment door gently behind him. I don't think this is a good idea, he said. Linda's smile faded. After everything I've done for you, Ethan, he cut her off. Not with anger, but with clarity. You raised me, and for that, I'll always be grateful. But you also used me, guilt-tripped me, lied about me, and when I finally stood up for myself, you tried to burn my reputation to the ground. I was scared, she said softly. So was I, he replied. But I didn't lie. I didn't turn people against you, I just left. A long pause. Then she held out the pie like a peace offering. He didn't take it. I'm not angry anymore, Mom, he said quietly. I'm just done. And with that, Ethan turned, stepped back inside, closed the door, not slammed, not shouted, just closed. Because that's what healing sounds like sometimes. A quiet click of a lock, not the crash of war. The weeks that followed felt different. Ethan didn't check for messages anymore, didn't scroll through his relatives' posts to see if anyone believed him. He didn't need them to, because he believed himself now. He still saw Sophie. She was saving up, planning her own escape. But the fire in her was growing, and Ethan knew she wouldn't just survive this. She'd rise from it. They joked now, laughed like siblings again, talked about dreams, the kind they hadn't let themselves have in years. And every time Ethan walked into his little apartment, hung up his keys, brewed a coffee without being told it was too noisy, he reminded himself, peace isn't a gift, it's a boundary. Months passed. One evening, while scrolling through his old messages, Ethan stumbled upon the first draft of that truth post he wrote. He read it again. His hands didn't shake this time. He smiled. Then opened a new note and wrote something else. Something that might one day become a book or a story told to someone else looking for the courage to walk away from what hurts them. Some people call it abandonment. But sometimes walking away is the first real act of love you give yourself. What about you? How did this story make you feel? Have you ever had to walk away from someone you love, not because you stopped caring, but because they stopped caring enough? If this story moved you, comment 100 below to show you're with Ethan. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear this story. You never know who's waiting for permission to choose peace. See you in the next story.